back to our character studies. We took a break for about 10 sessions looking at prayers of the Apostle Paul, and now we're looking back at our character study series. We're in Moses, and we already did part A, so we're jumping into part B, and that finds us in Exodus chapter 4. I'm going to read the first couple of verses up through verse 13 of Exodus 4, and you can just listen while I read to get us underway tonight. Then Moses said, "What if they will not believe me or listen to what I say? For they may say, 'The Lord has not appeared to you.' The Lord said to him, 'What is that in your hand?' And he said, 'A staff.' Then he said, 'Throw it on the ground.' So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from it. But the Lord said to Moses, 'Stretch out your hand and grasp it by its tail.' So he stretched out his hand and caught it, and it became a staff in his hand. That they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. The Lord furthermore said to him, 'Now put your hand into your bosom.' So he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous like snow. Then he said to him, 'Put your hand into your bosom again.' So he put his hand into his bosom again, and behold, when he took it out of his bosom, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. If they will not believe you or heed the witness of the first sign, they may believe the witness of the last sign. But if they will not believe even these two signs or heed what you say, then you shall take some water from the Nile and pour it on the dry ground, and the water which you take from the Nile will become blood on the dry ground." Then Moses said to the Lord, "Please, Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither recently nor in time past, nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." The Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth, or who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now then go, and I, even I, will be with your mouth and teach you what you are to say." But he said, "Please, Lord, now send the message by whomever you will." We'll pause there. So on our question sheet for tonight, this is Bible Character Study number 31, Moses, Part B. The bottom of the page number is 34, and working our way through this question sheet. Number one, Moses, still talking to God at the burning bush, now worries that the Israelites won't believe that God sent him. What object did God change? Moses' staff was turned into a snake. Number two, besides the sign of the snake, God also gave Moses two other signs of divine power so that the Israelites would believe that God sent him. What were they? First of all, a leprous hand and water into blood. So those are the two additional signs. So he has three signs, miraculous powers with which he's equipped to help the Israelites understand that he's a prophet from God. Number three, but Moses protested yet again, saying that he was not eloquent, but was slow of speech. Was this true exactly out of Acts chapter 7? No, not really. He was a well-educated man, a man of power in words and deeds. So it was kind of a lame excuse. He actually was eloquent. He actually was well-mannered in his speech. And so, when he says, "Lord, I don't talk so good," that's he's just trying to get out of responsibility. That's not actually accurate. Number four, how does God respond to this excuse? By saying, "Who made man's mouth? Is it not I, the Lord? Now then go, and I will be with you, your mouth, and will teach you what to say." So God says, who is the creator of the ability to speak? Who's the creator of mouths and tongues? And who's the creator of the ability to talk? Isn't it me? Haven't I made you? Haven't I made mouth? And so I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to empower you. I'm going to give you the words to say, and you're going to do fine. Number five, finally, having apparently run out of protests and excuses, what did Moses say? Out of verse 13, this is paraphrased. "Please, Lord, send someone else, somebody else, anybody you want, but not me." So Moses doesn't really want to go. He doesn't want the job. But here's a life lesson. When God says, I've picked you, you need to say, okay. You need to say, all right, Lord, I'm on it. So God responded to this, number 6. He was angry, but he also appointed Moses' brother Aaron to be his spokesman. By the way, Aaron is 83. He's 3 years older than Moses at this point. Number 7, after politely seeking permission to leave from his father-in-law, so this is a cultural thing. He says to his father-in-law, please send me on my way. Please let me go. And this is a cultural sign of respect and honor. Moses and his family travel toward Egypt. God adds instructions on what Moses is to say to Pharaoh after showing him the wonders, the snake, the leprosy, the blood. And what is the message? This is out of verses 22 and 23, paraphrased. Israel is my firstborn son. If you refuse to let him go, I will kill your firstborn son. Number 8, after a strange incident which reveals that Moses apparently had not circumcised his son Gershom, Moses met with his brother Aaron in the wilderness at Mount Horeb. The two of them then gathered the elders of Israel, showed the signs, and told them the news that God had heard their cries for help and was sending deliverance. Were Moses' fears that they wouldn't believe him realized? No. The elders believed him and what? Worshipped God. So as soon as Moses announced who he is, and he says, God has sent me, God has heard your prayers, he knows that you're suffering, and I have been sent to lead you out of Egypt. You're going to be rescued. And the Israelite elders respond by belief. They say, we believe you. And they actually bow down and worship the Lord. So now here's a couple of verses out of Exodus chapter 5. I'm going to read down to verse 9. Exodus 5, starting at verse 1. And afterward Moses and Aaron came and said to Pharaoh, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may celebrate a feast to me in the wilderness. But Pharaoh said, who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and besides, I will not let Israel go. Then they said, the God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go a 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. Otherwise he will fall upon us with pestilence or with a sword. But the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you draw the people away from their work? Get back to your labors. Again, Pharaoh said, look, the people of the land are now many, and you would have them cease from their labors. So the same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters over the people and their foremen, saying, you are no longer to give the people straw to make brick as previously. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But the quota of bricks which they were making previously, you shall impose on them. You are not to reduce any of it, because they are lazy. Therefore they cry out, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let the labor be heavier on the men, and let them work at it so that they will pay no attention to false words. So, number 9 question, in contrast to the Jews, how did Pharaoh respond to Moses and Aaron's demand that he let Israel go? He says, who is the Lord? Now remember that all caps, Lord, L-O-R-D, all caps, is actually an English convention for what? Yahweh. Yahweh, the name of the Lord, his personal name. So Pharaoh is saying, who is Yahweh that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, and besides, I will not let Israel go. I've already made up my mind, you can't do anything to change my mind. I'm not letting them go. Now, we know in the background, if we were to read chapters 1 through 3 of Exodus, we would discover that Pharaoh and the top level of government in Egypt had been having discussions, and they were very, very worried regarding Israel. For what primary reason? They were huge. The Israelis had multiplied, and there were lots and lots and lots of them. And their thinking was, if we get into a war with a foreign enemy and we're getting invaded, the Israelites are going to align themselves with our enemy, and we will be outnumbered. Furthermore, another piece of this is the Israelites are slaves. They have a free labor pool. The Egyptians can make them do whatever they want them to do. And they've got them making brick for storage cities, to build gigantic silos for grain storage and so on. And so why would we let them go when we have free labor and there's so many of them? We have to have control of them. You even pick up on that a little bit in verse 5, chapter 5, verse 5. Again, Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of the land are now many, and you would have them cease from their labors." So there's a veiled, implied reason behind that. There are so many Israelites, and if they're not busy working, what's the implication? They could get out of hand. Revolt, revolution, rebellion, chaos. And so Pharaoh says, we've got to keep them working. So, this is part of his reasoning. Back down there in question 9. Pharaoh has made up his mind ahead of time. He says, I don't know Yahweh. Now, remember that the Egyptian mentality is not monotheistic. When I say monotheistic, what do I mean? Monotheism, what's that? The belief in one God. One God. The Egyptians were polytheistic. Lots of gods. Dozens and dozens. Gods like you can't even believe. So lots and lots of different kinds of gods, and their gods manifested in different ways. So one manifestation of one of their gods is flies. Yeah, you heard me right, flies. Another is a dung beetle, a beetle that lives on manure, and so on. These are manifestations of the Egyptian gods. And so when the Pharaoh says, I don't know Yahweh, he's reflecting his own culture. He's saying, I'm an Egyptian, we have a lot of gods. Actually, in Egyptian theology, the Pharaoh himself is a god. He himself is a descendant or a relative of the sun god. And so he's worthy of worship himself. But he says, I don't know this Yahweh that you're talking about. He's not one of our gods. And I've already made up my mind. Your people are going nowhere. They're not leaving Egypt. Question number 10. Pharaoh also commanded that the Israelite slaves had to find their own straw, that is the raw materials, to make clay bricks without reducing their daily quota. Although the Israelites scattered to find straw, in verse 12, they could not keep up, and the Israelite foremen were beaten for it. After pleading for mercy from Pharaoh and receiving none, they cursed Moses and Aaron. So look at the end of this chapter. Pick it up at verse 18. I'm in Exodus 5:18. So go now and work, for you will be given no straw, yet you must deliver the quota of bricks. The foremen of the sons of Israel saw that they were in trouble because they were told, you must not reduce your daily amount of bricks. When they left Pharaoh's presence, they met Moses and Aaron as they were waiting for them. They said to them, may the Lord look upon you and judge you, for you have made us odious in Pharaoh's sight and in the sight of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to kill us. Then Moses returned to the Lord and said, O Lord, why have you brought harm to this people? Why did you ever send me? Ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done harm to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all. So, question number 10. Pharaoh also commanded that the Israelite slaves had to find their own straw, raw materials. The Israelites scattered to find straw. They could not keep up. The Israelite foremen were beaten for it. After pleading for mercy from Pharaoh and receiving none, they cursed Moses and Aaron. What did Moses cry to God in verses 22 and 23? Paraphrase his words. So what was the word of Moses? Go ahead, Boomy.
Lord, why have you brought hardship upon your people, and you have not rescued them?
Yes. And then he goes on to say, why did you send me? Lord, why did you send me down here? Ever since I got here, things have gotten worse. I thought you were going to rescue the Jews. I thought you were going to help them. But since I got here, things have gotten way worse. Now they're beating them. And furthermore, the foremen in verses 19 and 20, when they're coming out from Pharaoh's throne room, they meet Moses and Aaron going in. And what do the Jewish foremen say to Moses and Aaron? What's their attitude? What's their mentality? They're saying, you guys are some help. You guys are really helping us a lot. You have given Pharaoh and his court a good reason to kill us because we can't keep up with the work, and now they're beating us up. They're saying this to Moses and Aaron. These are their own kinsmen. And you can't blame them because since Moses and Aaron have arrived on the scene, things have gotten worse. Things are getting really bad. So now in chapter 6 of Exodus, let me read a couple of verses here. And this is a little different chapter. I think I'm going to go to verse 13. So I'm in Exodus 6, starting at verse 1. Then the Lord said to Moses, now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh, for under compulsion he will let them go, and under compulsion he will drive them out of his land. God spoke further to Moses and said to him, I am the Lord, and I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty, but by my name, Lord, I did not make myself known to them. I also established my covenant with them, to give them the land of Canaan, the land in which they sojourned. Furthermore, I have heard the groaning of the sons of Israel, because the Egyptians are holding them in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Say therefore to the sons of Israel, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will deliver you from their bondage. I will also redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. Then I will take you for my people, and I will be your God, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God, who brought you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will bring you to the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you for possession. I am the Lord. So Moses spoke thus to the sons of Israel, but they did not listen to Moses on account of their despondency and cruel bondage. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Go, tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the sons of Israel go out of his land. But Moses spoke before the Lord, saying, Behold, the sons of Israel have not listened to me. How then will Pharaoh listen to me? For I am unskilled in speech. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, and gave them a charge to the sons of Israel and to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring the sons of Israel out from the land of Egypt. So among the interesting things here, at the end of chapter 5, this interchange between the foremen of Israel and Moses and Aaron, where the Israelite foremen, managers, are saying, look what you've done to us. You guys are some kind of help. You're down here talking to Pharaoh, and all that happens is we get beat up and we get more work loaded onto our shoulders. Some help you guys are. And Moses leaves there in great anguish, and he's calling out to the Lord, oh Lord, why? Ever since I got here, things have gotten worse. Why do you think God allowed this strange thing to happen? He said to Moses back up in Sinai, he says, I'm going to deliver the Jews from the Egyptians, and you're the guy to do it. But that's not how it's going now. This is not how Moses thought it was going to go. Why would God allow this? There's a couple of reasons. And you can see that God is hinting at it here. He says, under compulsion and with great judgments, God is going to prove how powerful he is to Israel and to the Egyptians. and it's going to involve a lot of, the 10 plagues of Egypt, and finally the death of the firstborn, and then the Egyptian army is going to chase them, and the waters of the Red Sea. All of that is on the docket. That's what God has planned. He's going to demonstrate that Egypt may not know Yahweh, but they should. And Yahweh is the one true and living God, and all the Egyptian gods are just a figment of the imagination. But there's something else going on with Moses and his interchange with the Jewish foremen. When they accuse him and Aaron of making things worse, Moses goes back and talks to God and says, God, why is this? Things are terrible. This is horrible. I'm here to help, and things have gotten worse and worse and worse. What's happening to Moses and Moses' prayer life? He now has a very personal connection. He is there in person watching the suffering, and he's seeing it happen in real time. And so he now is on board. He is now invested. And when we see suffering, it's one thing, to pray for somebody we've never met before. And yes, of course, we're concerned. We are praying for their physical health. They're going to have surgery, or they're sick, or we're praying for somebody's relative who's unsaved. They don't know Christ. And of course, our hearts are burdened, and we want them to get saved. But then when they come to church, and then you invite them over and you have them in your house for lunch, and then you talk with them, what happens after that to your prayers? You know them. You have met them. You see what kind of situation that is. And you recognize this person needs the Lord. Boy, are they messed up. They are in a bad way, and the only thing that can really help them is God. They need Christ. Now your prayers, when you're praying for whoever it is, your prayers are now, wow. Lord, I know this person. I've talked to them, and they are in a world of hurt. They're so confused. They're suffering. They don't know which end is up. Father, I'm pleading with you. Please have mercy on them. So that's one of the things that happens with Moses and this interchange with the elders. So now I'm on question 11 on the back side of the page. On first reading, chapter 6 of Exodus can seem out of place, as if it interrupts the flow of the story, but God is pausing to announce who he is and what he's about to do. He is the covenant-keeping God. He promised the land of Canaan to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he will bring their descendants, the people of Israel, to that land. How? With an outstretched arm and great judgments. In verse 6, God will deliver and redeem Israel, who will become his people, and he will be their God. He will bring them out from their terrible enslavement to the Egyptians. Did the people of Israel listen to this amazing message? No. Because of their despondency, that means they were so sad, so downtrodden, they just couldn't even listen to it. And cruel bondage. So they were really suffering, and they couldn't really even process what Moses was telling them. Number 12, next we have a genealogy of Moses and Aaron. Genealogies often confirm the authority of a leader. The brothers and their sister Miriam are grandsons of Levi, Jacob's third son. What were their parents' names? Amram and Jochebed, two great names. At the end of the chapter, we return to the flow of the story. What is Moses doing yet again in verse 30? Yeah, he's talking to God again. He's questioning, saying, what's the plan? What are we doing here? He's praying. He's once again dependent on God. And so he is asking for God's mercy and grace and saying, how does this work again? I'm not tracking with this. Okay. Any questions or comments on what we've covered tonight? Take your prayer bulletins, please.